This video is an introduction to fractions. Now you can see on the screen we've got a fraction, and it has a number above the fraction line called the numerator and a number underneath the fraction line which is called the denominator. The denominator is the total parts in a whole, the numerator is the number of parts we have. And the fraction line tells us that we need to do top divided by bottom in order to turn our fraction into the equivalent decimal. So in this example, we want to express the shaded area as a fraction. So first of all, we need to count how many parts are in the whole, which is 5. And we draw our fraction line and put the 5 as our denominator. Then we need to count the shaded parts. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. And that becomes our numerator. So our fraction is 4/5. Now we're going to look at equivalent fractions and simplifying fractions. And the first thing we're going to do is look at this picture of the equivalent fractions for a whole. And you can see that we can split one whole up into 2 halves. And if we go further down the picture, we can see that 1/2 is the same as 2/4, which is the same as 3/6, which is the same as 4/8, which is the same as 5/10. And if we were to write all of these fractions by combining them, then you can see that 1/2 is the same as 2/4 or 2/4, which is the same as 3/6, which is 3/6, or 4/8, which is 4/8, or 5/10, which is 5/10. So these are all equivalent fractions. So in this example, we want to make two equivalent fractions by multiplying, and the fraction we're starting with is 2/5. So let's write our fraction, 2/5, and we're going to make that equal to two different fractions by multiplying. Now we can multiply by any integer that's not 0 or 1. So we're going to multiply by 2. And if we multiply the top by 2, we have to multiply the bottom by 2 as well. And that gives us an equivalent fraction of 4/10. Now we can take this fraction and multiply the top and the bottom by the same number to make another equivalent fraction. So this time we're going to multiply it by 3, and we need to multiply the bottom by 3. So 4 times 3 gives us 12 on the numerator, and 10 times 3 gives us 30 on the denominator. We could also have made this equivalent fraction by multiplying the top and the bottom of our original fraction by 6. Now simplifying a fraction is the same as finding an equivalent fraction, but this time we divide the numerator and the denominator by the same factor. So if we use the highest common factor, we can do this in one step. So we're going to simplify these three fractions. So our first fraction is 14/49. So we need to think what times table both 14 and 49 are on. And the answer to that question is the 7 times table. So we need to divide the top and the bottom by 7 in order to get our new numerator and denominator for our simplified fraction. And 14 divided by 7 gives us a numerator of 2, and 49 divided by 7 gives us a numerator of 7. In B, we have the fraction 45/60 that we want to simplify. Using the highest common factor, which happens to be 15, we can do this in one step. So we need to divide the top, or the numerator, by 15, and we need to divide the denominator by 15. So 45 divided by 15 gives us a numerator of 3, and 60 divided by 15 is 4. Now, if you don't instantly recognize what the highest common factor is, you can do it in steps, because we know that if numbers end in a 5 or a 0, they're on the 5 times table. So we can do it in 2 steps. First, divide the top and the bottom by 5. And we know that 45 divided by 5 is 9. And 60 divided by 5 is 12. Now we need to check to see if this is fully simplified, and it's not. We can still divide by 3 because both 9 and 12 are on our 3 times table. So 9 divided by 3 gives us 3, and 12 divided by 3 gives us 4. So our simplified fraction for 45 over 60 is 3/4. Now, for C, we're going to do 24 over 36. Now, the highest common factor of 24 and 36 happens to be 12, so we're going to divide the numerator by 12, and we're going to divide the denominator by 12. And there are 2 12s in 24, so that is our simplified numerator, and there's 3 12s in 36. Now, when it's an even number on the numerator and the denominator, we can always divide by 2. And we just need to keep checking whether or not we can still simplify our fraction so that we get to the same end point as we would using the highest common factor. So dividing 24 over 36 by 2, we get 12 over 18. If we divide that by 2 again, then we're going to get 6 over 9. Now we no longer have even numbers, but we do have numbers that are going to be on our 3 times table, so we can divide the top and the bottom by 3, and we get to the same end point of 2/3 as our simplified fraction for 24 over 36.